that, to come back to that word. It's a majestic day. It always has been, and it always should be. And just because of, in the middle of a pandemic, 2 weeks after the government was attacked at the inspiration of the sitting president of the United States, it's all the more so. And back to Jamie Gangel's point, President Bush is happy today to be there as a Republican. Even Mitch McConnell, who was with President Trump for most of the last 4 years, in recent days has made it pretty clear he wants to shove President Trump to the sidelines if he can, to be part of the Republicans trying to do that. And so there's a cleansing. There's an air of cleansing about today. There's an internal fight in the Republican Party about President Trump, soon to be former President Trump, that's going to continue. But today is an American celebration, and again, a testament to voting, a testament to the system, and a testament to the resilience and stubbornness. Irish stubborn is Joe Biden.
There you see the Biden motorcade driving closer and closer to the Capitol, driving right by all the U.S. National Guard troops who have emerged on Washington, D.C., some 25,000, many of them armed to help protect this city during this very, very significant moment. Manu Raju, you're there, you're getting ready to see the president-elect and his entourage arrive.
Wow.
Yeah, and we're actually going to see them being
unbelievable. We did it.
Leaders of both parties. It's a sign of bipartisanship on this historic
We
day.
did it.
Just
That's
inside
it.
the east front steps of the Capitol, inside the doors, are the congressional leaders. Mitch McConnell, Nancy Pelosi, the House Speaker. They will be there. We do probably expect the other Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer, as well as the House Republican leader, Kevin McCarthy, to greet Joe Biden on his entrance to the Capitol. He's going to walk up the steps, the east front steps of the Capitol, into the House side of the building, and then make his way through the Capitol and ultimately come out the west side of the Capitol, where he will deliver his inaugural address. And it's just such a stunning contrast from what we saw just 2 weeks ago, when these rioters came all over this plaza and stormed the very east front steps of the Capitol, that the soon-to-be president will be walking up and delivering his historic remarks. But right now we're seeing this motorcade pull up. We do expect him to walk out momentarily. We do expect the congressional leaders to greet him as he walks in to deliver his remarks.
We have a sense, Manu, how many of the 100 senators might be there today? How many of the 435 members of the House of Representatives? Are almost all of them there, or is it just a significant number?
I think there will be a significant number. There will be some who are not showing up. We're seeing, some members decide that they will not come for a variety of reasons. It looks like we are seeing Kamala Harris and her husband walk out of her motorcade from our vantage point. It looks like she is waiting now. There is Joe Biden walking out right now, and there's the president-elect, Joe Biden.
He is right there, and he's going to be walking in, and Dr. Joe Biden, his wife is there, of course, as well, members of the family. They are all there for this truly historic moment as we're watching all of this unfold. The Vice President-elect, her husband, Doug Emhoff, they are there already as well. As you can see, this is one of these historic moments as we get ready and ready.
Remarkable scene.
Let's listen and see if we catch anything.
Memorize. Inhale. Exhale.
Republican and Senator Amy Klobuchar, they are there representing the U.S. Senate to greet the president-elect and the future First Lady of the United States. Let's listen and watch as this a very, very significant moment continues.
Wow.
26,000 troops, Secret Service, police officers. Hard to believe that anything can happen today, anything out of the ordinary, but we will wait and see and pray that it doesn't. Speaker Pelosi with her mask that matches the outfit, Dan.
She's got a good mask game going on, I'll have to say that for sure. Brett Baer, thank you. We'll see you soon. Bill?
So at 10:31 here in our nation's capital, our coverage continues. Brett, Dana, thank you for that. We're going to bring in Martha here in a moment. And I think just as you two were reflecting on
you're watching
how Joe Biden got here,
live,
it should not be overlooked that
see what democracy look like and it feel like. No man is God, no man is an island.
And it was the resurrection in South Carolina with the backing of James Clyburn and 49% of the Democratic primary vote in the Palmetto State that literally launched Joe Biden to this position where he is today. Kamala Harris's bid, it fizzled before Christmas time in December of the year prior. But here they are together, walking in with their significant others, Doug Emhoff, and also Joe Biden here on the west steps of the Capitol. So 10:32, Dana, we're getting a little closer here on an otherwise chilly day in our nation's capital. The stage that has been set up here, it takes weeks, if not months, to construct, and it is quite something to walk along below the risers and to see just what goes into transforming this part of the Capitol building. From afar, you cannot tell. The design of the stage matches the Capitol building to perfection, as you can see from the camera angle here. Chief Justice John Roberts will be out in a moment, so too is Justice Sotomayor, who was the one who swore in Joe Biden back in 2013 as he began his second term with Barack Obama. So as the proceedings get underway, in a moment here live from the Capitol, we will bring you more here on this Inauguration Day of the 46th President. Already it's been a morning. If you're just watching us here, we weren't quite sure how President Trump would depart the White House. He left in Marine One, and we could see that helicopter circle the skies above us here and make a loop around the Capitol. What is tradition up until this year is for the outgoing administration, the outgoing President and First Lady, to climb on board that helicopter and fly down Pennsylvania Avenue, then bang to the left over the White House as one final salute as they roll out of town. The President did that with the First Lady, Melania Trump, and we could see it in the distance up Pennsylvania Avenue as the helicopter dipped to the left to say one final goodbye here to the White House in Washington, D.C. for President Trump and his wife, Melania. They're expected to arrive in Florida within the hour, and Dana, here in Washington, as they arrive in Palm Beach, we should be at the point for the national anthem and Lady Gaga as the presentation rolls on here in D.C.
As it gets underway, and of course, the first family will be landing soon, as you said. And of course, I don't know what. Hear from him again. He did give some remarks earlier on, and was gracious to the incoming president. But he also said, Bill, that he could be back. He doesn't know what form that could be, but I thought that was fairly newsy this morning.
Yes, I do agree with you, and we'll wait to see. Maybe there's more comment later today. Senator Graham now under our picture as well. Dana, we were talking, you and I, about the history between you and me and our inauguration history in Washington,
Look at that.
My first one was in 2001
Tom Cruise.
after a bitterly fought 37-day battle in Tallahassee, Florida. You come to Washington, the country's 50-50. Everyone's divided, pretty much like it is today. And yet you had an absolute downpour in Washington, D.C. on that inauguration day. 4 years later, here from the West Capitol, President Bush gave his, what I call the democracy speech, where he called out for every government around the world to follow the Democratic path. That was quite a moment. I know you were here then as well. That was a cold, cold day in D.C. Then 4 years after that, we had the crowds that came in from all over the country to see the inauguration, the swearing in of the first African-American president, and Barack Obama. My point is, you never forget these moments. They are very personal to you and very personal to me, and so personal for all who are watching at home today.
You know, in 2008, I did make 2009, excuse me, on Inauguration Day. I had no more security or anything like that. I had to make my way to the White House amongst everybody that was here for Barack Obama's inauguration. And I was on the metro on the way here, and the people were so excited. And I said a little prayer wishing them well. And they were cold, but they were joyous. I want to bring in one of our resident historians, somebody who loves history so much, and that is Martha McCallum. You pay a lot of attention to these ceremonies, and
Martha McCallum were part of those.
And I think that is so important. Let's get your thoughts today.
Who helped destroy Donald Trump. Liar.
As we look at the crowd gathering here, ready to oversee this inaugural. I'm just reminded of really how rocky the path has been to get here. There was quite some time throughout the course of this year where all of our focus was on COVID-19. Everything has looked different throughout the course of this year. And then, of course, we had the events of January 6th, which added another layer of security to all of this and has really presented us with a very unusual scene. However, I'm struck by how much looks familiar this morning as we watch this unfold. We see the dignitaries, the members of the Senate. Here comes the whip, Steve Scalise, coming in to witness this. Both
everybody on
here
mass.
to witness the swearing-in of Joe Biden, which will
everybody
happen at noon.
On a discipline. This is what we call discipline.
According to the United States Constitution. Also, I can't help but notice
law
all
and
the people
order
who come in who also ran and who hoped that today would be their inauguration. Among them, Senator Klobuchar, Senator Booker, Senator Sanders, all who we have watched come in. There's Senator Leahy of Vermont, who has been to many of these events. However, also worth pointing out at this moment as we watch everyone take their seats, there's a person who is not here, and that is President Trump, who is on his way to Florida. And I looked back at President Trump's inaugural speech last night and rewatched it. And one of the first things that he did, which is traditional, is to thank all of the presidents, Carter, Clinton, Bush, Obama, who were up there on that dais with him as he took that oath. And today, that is going to sound a little bit different. You will hear the former presidents thanked, and you will hear Vice President Pence thanked by the incoming new president-elect and will be president soon, Joe Biden. But President Trump will not be there. And that is an extraordinary
Thanks to you.
part of this story today. He has always done things by the beat of his own drummer. And that drummer took him out of D.C. this morning on Air Force One before all of this was to take place. He did not want to be part of what we're watching unfold here, Dana.
She's one of the insurrectionists.
On the Capitol, all of these guests are arriving. Just a moment ago, you did see Congressman Steve Scalise from Louisiana.
Yes.
Every member gets a +1. His +1 is a fellow citizen of Louisiana, and that is Donna Brazile, our colleague here as well.
Saw that, yeah. Some of these folks dress up like they were in a Green Bay Packer game, and for good reason, Dana, because the wind here is going to blow for hours in D.C. The theme is America United. I'm just going to read one sentence from the briefing book that was provided by the Biden folks. At a time of unprecedented crisis and deep divisions, America United reflects the beginning of a new national journey that restores the soul of America, brings the country together, and creates a path to a brighter future. That is the
this
theme
channel,
that Joe
Fast
Biden
News,
will use to launch
I'm
his
covering them. I want to
administration.
watch them and see what they're going to
See how
say.
that goes in
These
time
are
given deeply divided country in which we
insurrectionists.
find ourselves.
These are the people that create problems. This channel,
And
Fast
Martha,
News.
while you were here,
Fast News.
this is the White House behind us. There's nobody there at the moment. They're getting
Martha
ready for
McCallum,
President-elect
Sean
Biden
Hannity,
and Dr. Jill Biden.
Lauren Ergram.
They are going to do a lot of executive orders today. That is going to be the first
Who
order
is
of
there?
business. How do
The
you think
big
they frame
eye.
that? And we have the press secretary, of course, to give you a brief
Tucker
statement
Carlson.
tonight.
You know, I think they've made a statement by saying that when
This
the
lady
president arrives at the White House,
She don't like Biden.
And other members of the
She-
Senate,
she's
they
a
walk in.
Republican.
As the new president
She's
arrives at the
the,
White House, we're told he will go straight
radical
to the Oval
Republican.
Office and will
The new
begin to
majority
enact
leader.
executive orders ending the XL pipeline,
coming.
Keystone Pipeline, which was one of the very first moves that President Trump made. It was very controversial during the Obama administration. A lot of people wanted to see that pipeline open, and today will be a disappointing day for those who wanted that. as that will be closed. He will also end construction on the border wall, a very real change in what's happening on our border and a very symbolic change as well. Obviously, President Trump championed that border wall, wanting to have a sovereign nation, a secure nation at our southern border was really one of the things that propelled him to the presidency. So you'll see that reversed right away as well. So, you know, I think that's going to be a move. Those are going to be moves, rejoining the Paris Climate Accord, that are somewhat divisive, Dana.
It is. And actually, Bill, I think that we've neglected to talk about something so far. Let's do it now. And that is that in many ways, a lot of people see this
let's
as
flip it
a
to
third
MSNBC.
And
Let's see, MSNBC.
Outgoing Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and his wife recently resigned.
This is what you don't get in any other place.
Chow, standing on the right, and you notice, I mean, I hope we can hold the shot long enough. Biden and McConnell exchanged a little wave, which was, you know, there they are. Hi, guys. Yeah. See you later. Are we going to get this thing done? The fact that Biden is coming into this office knowing everybody in every significant source, every significant position of power in Washington, and having long and in some cases complex relationships with all of them. Just, I don't know if it will help him ultimately in getting done what he needs to get done. But the dramatic contrast between that and
what about his song?
Developer and reality TV show Donald Trump coming in, knowing everyone, hating them all at the outset, and deriding them in his inaugural. It's just night and day. It's night and day.
It is. And just his knowledge, Rachel, of the real estate up there. This is a guy who had a Senate office for so long, had a hideaway office in the Capitol, just knows the social patterns and mores and knows a good deal of the members of the Senate, has kept up with it, was up there all the time as vice president. With this razor's edge party balance in the U.S. Senate, I think it can't help but help if getting legislation through that body is their aim. Few clouds popping up over the dome, but still there are so many blessings to count today. It is not the bitter cold winter days we've seen in past inaugurations. Yes, people are bundled, but we are so fortunate that it's above freezing temperatures predicted to be in just the low 40s when we get underway here.
Brian, we do have a little bit of news we've been remarking on, and you've been pointing out that we've seen these camera angles, most recently from the Trump mob attack on the Capitol 2 weeks ago. But one of the stark moments of heroism, remarkable bravery and heroism, that day was Capitol Police Officer Eugene Goodman, who we've all seen, appears to have deliberately led part of the Trump mob away from the Senate floor, which at the moment appeared to be unguarded, perhaps saving an invasion of the Senate floor while senators were still on it. Eugene Goodman, that officer, will now be the acting deputy House Sergeant at Arms. He will be part of the ceremony today as well, but Eugene Goodman being honored by a Deputy Sergeant at Arms position within the U.S. Capitol Police after that remarkable heroic act.
Former Vice President Dan Quayle. In fact, Rachel, we already saw Officer Goodman as official escort to the Vice President-elect. He was waiting for Kamala Harris at the top of the stairs when she arrived. Dan Quayle, of course, his running mate, no longer with us. President Bush 41, there's Congressman Scalise. We should also mention that the fact that Scalise was able to walk on a day like today under his own power as a result of years of physical therapy. He was one of the victims of that shooting during the baseball practice game prior to the congressional baseball games, and he has had many subsequent surgeries and has devoted a good deal of his life to being ambulatory after getting grievously wounded that day. Susan Collins of Maine.
I'm still thinking of a point Rachel made a couple of minutes ago. It takes my brain a minute to catch up sometimes, but we are going to be shaped for years by what happened 2 weeks ago, and the elevation to Deputy Sergeant at Arms is just one of the public-facing, I think, pieces of evidence of that fact. But every Republican who voted to overturn the results of what Chris Krebs, the lifelong Republican, most senior election security official, described as the most secure election in history, did so after the insurrection. They did so after the mob came to kill the vice president and members of Congress. And so these pictures will always look different. This will not feel normal in any sense when we see them assembled there together today.
Senator Menendez of New Jersey, we were watching Senator Leahy and Senator Schumer. Nicole, we can't repeat it often enough that you can hear the chant on videotape, "Hang Mike Pence." You can hear the search for the Speaker's office and the Speaker. There, of course, the Clintons' arrival.
Oh, Clinton. Even though they are corrupt.
Across the highly polished floors of the crypt.
It'll be interesting, Brian, to see what sort of public and political profile each of the Clintons have during the Biden administration. They obviously have good relationships with everybody in the current administration, the incoming administration. But Hillary Clinton was such an interesting figure in terms of her public profile after her loss in 2016 to Donald Trump. There was some discussion that she might actually take a position in the Biden administration. It doesn't look like that's in the cards, at least at the outset. But they'll have an interesting role to play, as will Michelle and Barack Obama, as public figures, as Biden and Harris take their places.
It's an interesting point, Rachel. And former President Clinton was tapped by my old boss after international tragedies and after natural disasters to get involved in philanthropic ways. And you have to imagine that those will be the kinds of things that are batted around by this current White House.
Yeah, we'll be back to a time where former presidents of both parties are called upon to help when needed and in ways that show, bipartisan comedy and American unity.
Right.
And all of those efforts will just have to skip the last president as if he wasn't there, because he's not part of that. And he doesn't want to be part of that, as evidenced by the fact that he's not there today. There will be some continuity of American leadership and government that just ignores Donald Trump's existence. And it's going to be a weird thing.
But some of it will be to make up for a deficit in our affinity for democracy, a deficit in our trust in science, a deficit perhaps in our willingness to get vaccinated. Some of it, some of the tasks put before former presidents may be to make up for some of the damage done by the outgoing president.
Some of the guests at the inauguration are more equal than others, and the PA system announces some of them, including our former presidents. As the Clintons come down, they will make way for the Bushes to come down the steps and then
I love Bush.
themselves. Michael Beckloss continues
Look at he live right here.
to us and watching with us.
Less than 7 miles from me. God bless you, Bush. This is the real Republican. I love you, Bush.
Seeing
the Bush family
presidents reminds us who we are.
It really does, and that's something we really have missed for 4 years. Some, Brian, might just dismiss this as symbolism, and certainly it is symbolic, but the fact that we have not seen scenes like this for 4 years, I think, has given a lot of people the sense that you've had a flashing red light and an SOS going on and off for our democracy during so much of Donald Trump's presidency.
Go, Obama. That's how we do it. Well, that is what I do. Yes.
Can I just remark?
I love you, Obama.
Obama is, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be obsessive, flawless. Flawless. Absolutely flawless. I mean, her fashion sense is uncanny. Brilliant. And she dresses her makeup very well as well, because I believe she consults to make sure that he looks appropriate.
Can I tell you that Michelle Obama is so well dressed right now? She's the only person whose mask doesn't stand out as a strange thing that had to be added to her outfit. Like
it's like he was designed with it.
Exactly. She is integrated.
I'm President Bush's wife, Laura Bush.
I've been wearing the same thing for 6 years. But
the Bush! You love him, man. That way? Oh, God. Oh, wait, either you are with us or you are against us. Either you are with me or you are against me.
All black is chic. And
you make a choice.
She really understands how to
when it's spoke to the Russia, either you are with America or you are against Russia. Now I'm with you.
But also powerful. She really is just masterful at it.
We were talking a moment ago about the former presidents being called upon by current presidents, former presidents being called upon to show up for events like this for the inaugural. And every living president and former First Lady would be there today were it not for the advanced age and the pandemic concerns around the Carters. We see the Supreme Court entering now. To the extent that Trump is excluded from these sorts of events where former presidents show themselves, questions whether or not Trump's supporters also feel excluded from events like this and from moments of national unity.
I can think about Rachel. I mean, that's part of the security challenge. We were talking to former Secretary Johnson about earlier. I mean, when you deal with extremism, you are dealing with that very sentiment. People on the outside who become radicalized, and I worry about that too.
It's possible that the presence of Mike Pence here is a key toward trying to address that in the future, to the extent that Mike Pence can speak to or for any of the Trump phenomenon in their base. I know that that's possible after what the president did to him, sicking that mob on him 2 weeks ago. But Pence is at least trying. He's at least trying.
We just saw members of the court file passed. All three of the Trump appointees were with them. I did not see Justices Breyer, Thomas, or Alito. We'll see if they're in attendance as we listen to the reception for the Obamas.
Speaking of former presidents, I don't know that a former president has ever been as involved in such a way like the former President Obama was this year. His speech at the convention haunts me still. And the palpable pain and the warnings he seemed determined to issue to the country in a very public way made their own kind of post-presidential history.
You know, and Nicole, isn't it kind of remarkable that, you know, bookending Donald Trump and this very bizarre, very hurtful 4 years are two radically historic presidencies, both of which included Joe Biden. That's pretty amazing.
No, it is. And I think to the degree that George W. Bush sought to honor this tradition of a peaceful transfer of power, he put out a stinging rebuke of the insurrection 2 weeks ago, very early, while all of us were on the air together as that came out. And I think he sought to be some connective tissue between that community of former presidents and former vice presidents. But I think it just talks about how it points to how far the Republican Party has traveled down toward the bottom, and whether they follow Mike Pence or George W. Bush to a more peaceful, less radicalized place is the open question of
Thomas. Let me just speak quickly. I'll just interject quickly with the Supreme Court members that we saw here. Brian is correct that Justice Thomas, Justice Alito, and Justice Breyer have not been seen with the other justices today. It's possible that they may not be coming. They at least didn't arrive with the others. But it is, I think, we see Justice Roberts there, instantly recognizable. He'll be swearing in President Biden. We see Sonia Sotomayor, who swore in Biden as vice president in his second term. She will swear in Vice President Harris for her term today. But then to see all of the three justices who were appointed by President Trump there today, not there just because all the justices are there. All the justices are not there. But to see Trump's three appointees there matters. And is also something that, again, it's not mandatory. They can do whatever they want. To have the three of them show up today is a message.
Yeah. And I was just going to say to Nicole, because you did serve George W. Bush's administration, I mean, if you think about the fact that in many ways President Obama ran as a rebuke, to many of the things about the Bush era, right? And yet, and particularly the war, the Iraq War, and yet, what I still remember about that transition the most is George W. Bush's daughters giving that really sweet tour of the White House to the Obama little girls and understanding what it was going to mean to be kids in this administration, and just the personal outreach between those families, the interaction, the connection that you later saw between George W. Bush and Michelle Obama. They're like buddies and pals. Like, the fact that you can be so different ideologically on policy, in the ways in which you want to govern, but at a human level, they know that there've only been, at this point, 46 of these. There haven't been a lot of people who've been president, and they have a bond. And they have a bond that stretches across party. You think of George Herbert Walker Bush and Bill Clinton, who he came to think of as almost like another son. They couldn't have been different, right? And it is weird that, as Rachel just said, Trump has chosen to not be part of that.
Right. And not to whitewash any former president's record, certainly not to do that to George W. Bush's, but he sought to aid the Obamas in every way. He reached out to Michelle Obama's mom, helped encourage her to move to Washington, and tried to develop, away from the cameras, away from public view, meaningful and supportive bonds with the family that would occupy the White House after him.
Members of the Biden family, as we've been watching members of the Supreme Court milling about as Hunter Biden comes in, we saw the stepchildren of the Vice President-elect earlier. Michael Beschloss standing by. Michael, by all accounts, the Chief Justice loathed his job as presiding over the first impeachment trial for Donald Trump. The framers have left us nothing in the instruction book with who should preside over the trial of a no longer president. It could be Roberts, it could be Leahy, it could be Harris. We just don't know. Is that correct?
That's absolutely right, and we're all going to be improvising because we've never seen, as you know, an impeachment trial of a former president, and it's going to be absolutely fascinating because if the vote goes against Donald Trump, which actually looks more likely hour by hour as we find more things about his ties to this insurrection. If it does, and maybe even if it doesn't, Donald Trump, I think, is going to be an outcast forever among these former presidents. I don't think we're going to see him at these gatherings of former presidents at various ceremonies. Richard Nixon, for instance, was never invited to a Republican convention ever after he resigned.
Mike Pence has left a note in the desk drawer for the incoming Vice President, Kamala Harris. The Vice President's ceremonial office is the old Indian treaty room over in the old executive office building, though the Vice President in modern times has had an office in the West Wing. And ending the speculation, we learned early this morning that Donald Trump indeed did go through with one bit of tradition and left a note for his successor in the desk drawer of the Oval Office. You saw the big greeting there for members of the Biden family from Mrs. Obama. Of course, don't forget how much time these two families spent together. Here come the Pences. Mike Pence goes forward with an uncertain role in American politics. There have been few more loyal, more obedient vice presidents. Never had a relationship or a president quite like the one who is president for 1 hour and 1 minute more.
Never has a vice president been sort of forced by circumstances to be more obsequiously supplicant in public to the president. But here in these last crisis days and last crisis hours of the Trump presidency, Pence has effectively been playing the role that he took the job for, which is to become stand-in president in the absence of Donald Trump. he paid for it in 3.99 years of dignity. But he now gets to play the role that he wanted, that caused him to take the job in the first place.
For all those wondering, Donald Trump has indeed landed in post-presidency land in Florida. He'll take up residence at Mar-a-Lago despite a 1993 local agreement that it would not become a permanent residence. It is a great legal question about how that will be circumvented or surmounted.
Points for the baby bonnet. While we're talking fashion, Joy, are we allowed to talk about baby
I think we can do that all day if you like, absolutely. But you know, the point you just made off the fashion point for just 1 second, Rachel, you know, Mike Pence is a curious figure, but in a way he also kind of is the human embodiment of the tragedy of really white evangelicalism. Because you had evangelicals like him make this tremendous compromise of whatever it is they said they believed in, whether it's fidelity in marriage, whether it's reverence toward women, whether it's whatever it is that they were putting forth. I mean, the evangelical church, you know, the church tells you to love the poor and the immigrant, and they didn't do that, and they traded it all for judges and whatever else they thought they were getting from.
See if we still have audio from Capitol Hill where the Pences were just introduced.
It takes a lot to put on an inauguration, and there are lots of protocols, lots of rules, and they are involved in doing that, and not just the elected representatives, but the people who work there and have done this many times. We just saw lost energy tonight. I love watching these moments as an American, as a journalist, as somebody who likes history, to see them all mingling. Let's listen to what's next.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President of the United States, the Honorable Michael R. Pence and Mrs. Karen Pence.
Bipartisan applause there for the outgoing Vice President, Mike Pence, and his wife, the Second Lady. Obviously some appreciation that they are abiding by norms and basic protocols and basic decency by attending and being part of this transfer of power. There you see former President George W. Bush, who knows Mike Pence from when Mike Pence was in the House of Representatives before he went back to Indiana to run for governor.
That's right. He was a member of the leadership. But just looking at Mike Pence there you see him greeting the Obamas as well. Looking at him 2 weeks ago today, he was in there doing his constitutional duty. And a mob, inspired by the man who picked him for vice president, was trying to break in right where he is to get into the Capitol. Some of them were screaming, "Hang Mike Pence."
And there was literally a gallows that one of them had fashioned outside the Capitol with a noose.
Exactly. And to talk about what you said earlier, a celebration of democracy, the fact that here we are 2 weeks later to the day, and there he is doing his duty, not constitutionally this time, but as an American, as somebody who respects protocol, he is there as opposed to being at the Andrews Air Force Base send-off this morning.
And for what it's worth, I mean, within his role in the last several months, he has played a role in where we are in terms of what happened 2 weeks ago. But for what it's worth, it's important that he decided to make a statement about the transfer of power here. and about being a part of this process and being a part of this ceremony, which has become sacred in this country, at least in the last century, where we've had this marking of the passing of the baton from one administration to the next. And what's always...
Up. And then the Biden family's things are not going to get dropped off and rolling down the driveway until he officially takes over. The White House resident staff are going to have a few hours to get things set up.
This is what you are enjoying on PFN.
Donald Trump is in Florida. With him is a military aide with the nuclear codes, the so-called football. Every president has a card with the launch codes. Should they have to do the worst part of the job? Should they have to unleash the unthinkable? At 12 noon, Donald Trump's launch codes become inert and unusable. Control is shifted to the military aide who is with Joe Biden for all day today and the duration of his term.
Wow.
Interesting to see Mike Pence there in the foreground and former President George W. Bush in the immediate background. It's hard to tell who's talking to who. The depth of field is sort of hard to tell from this distance. But I will just say
anywhere the president goes, he has the nuclear code card.
Huge national event like this that we've had during the pandemic, and every one of these guys,
if he chooses to hit it, to unleash on anybody, that will be the end of that country.
We've seen just a couple people who don't have their mask on correctly.
God bless America.
I want to die.
You can be jealous of ERANOMIGHO.
Fix their masks for them.
I am proud to be an American.
Every time I see somebody in two masks,
God bless America.
Every time I see a shifted mask,
like me or hate me, I love this country so much.
People, I mean, masks work, but they have to cover your facial orifices in order to do so. Jeez.
My face is supposed to wear mask today.
My earpiece thing works again, but Rachel, we have exactly the same thing.
Give you power.
When I see it, I want to go up to people.
I love you. One of the universe. That's what they told my channel to. Obaseki people, you see how they shrink all my viewers? They shrink it. It's okay.
I mean, a single layer mask does work, the experts tell us. But for safety's sake, you see some in
Obaseki need to call them in order.
Given the
call them to order. He need to call his voice to order.
Is that A-Rod?
That's A-Rod of all people. His wife J-Lo is singing, and so there's A-Rod.
To that point, Brian, can we just remark about the fact that, you know, the entertainment industry boycott of Donald Trump wound up being one of the few things that he actually took to heart about his presidency, and it is a signal that it wasn't going well, right? What he really wanted at the end of the day was the love and adoration of famous people, of celebrities, of stars. But what he got instead, and before I went, my mic went crazy before, was that he got the adoration of an evangelical audience that Mike Pence represented in his administration, but who despise that Hollywood world. They think that it's undermined sort of core
Look at the mega match. Four-star general.
It's ironic that Donald Trump really came from this sort of world of
President Obama,
at the level he had.
President Bush, President Clinton, Jimmy Carter is not physically sound. He would have been there.
Than the one he came in with. Rachel, you made that point on your show the other day. If he had known what he
the
was going to
Obamas,
lose,
the Clintons,
what he really wants, I don't know if he would have run.
the Bushes.
There's Vice President-elect and her husband, First Gentleman, Second Gentleman, Doug. And you saw there Officer Goodman in the camel hair.
He's the second gentleman.
He is out ahead of them right there on the stairway as the official escort to the Vice President-elect.
The man who saved the Senate. Again, he's been promoted to acting Deputy House Sergeant at Arms after his heroism on the day of the Trump mob attack on the Capitol.
Wow. A black fire wife here, you are. But Yana Ma Joe Biden. I want to go in. He why able to Joe Biden has He has a black, I don't know how to call it, in him.
It's the likely next Transportation Secretary, Pete Buttigieg, with his husband.
They're going to have a huge impact on Washington. I just see them as two people who are going to move culture in Washington. They're great.
Ceremonies, Maria Miller-Lohmeyer, the acting Deputy House Sergeant-at-Arms, Kevin Grubbs, and the acting Deputy Senate Sergeant-at-Arms, United States Capitol Police Officer Private First Class Eugene O. Goodman.
You hear the round of applause there for Officer Goodman. I had said he was going to be acting Deputy House Sergeant-at-Arms. Incorrect, it's acting Deputy Senate Sergeant-at-Arms, again after his heroism during the attack on the Capitol. Several members of Congress have said that he should get a Congressional Medal of Honor.
He should. He absolutely should. That's the real Black Panther in real life.
The Congressional Gold Medal.
Yeah. And the Presidential Medal of Freedom to restore the honor of that medal after what the current, for another 45 minutes, president did to it. Give him all of them.
The Vice President-elect of the United States, Kamala Debbie Harris, and Mr. Douglas Emhoff.
This is such an important moment, I have to tell you. You know, for a lot of Black girls out there in the world today are smiling maybe for the first time in 4 years, seeing this, you know, Howard University graduate, member of a Black sorority, a Lynx member, somebody that seems so familiar in a lot of the same ways that Michelle Obama did, taking this place in history. This is pretty amazing. This is my first goosebumps moment, other than the coat that Michelle Obama had on. This is amazing. This is absolutely amazing.
The incoming and outgoing vice presidents there having a moment.
Washington's just about to be full of new faces. And I think that as much as politics have become so dark and so depressing,
you are watching People Freedom Movement. If you have not been our follower, follow us, like our page, subscribe to PFN YouTube channel. You are watching the inauguration of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris at U.S. Capitol after the departure of the insurrectionist leader, disgraced President Donald J. Trump, the leader and the founder of MAGA, domestic terrorist group, who invaded the U.S. Congress January 6, 2021. God bless America. MEGACOMRADE.
Interviews and bios on the incoming cabinet, but some really interesting and different people in terms of tone and life experience.
You're also not seeing this inauguration take place with the Democratic Party divided, or with a faction of the Democratic Party having become ascendant and another having been defeated. I'm thinking about some of the nominees that were announced just this week that were described widely as people who, you know, Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren might have nominated for the same position had they won the presidential primary rather than Joe Biden.
MEGACOMRADE bringing this live event to everyone to watch if you are not opportune to have a TV where you are. Even if you have a TV, it's better you watch it with MEGACOMRADE live.
Both Biden and Harris there today. Neither of them is a divisive figure within their party. There isn't a healing to be done on the Democratic side in the way there was needed to be on the Republican side. Never happened in 2017.
Such a good point. And even when the Democrats debate policy, it will not be of the same nature as what happened on the right.
I mean, there will be constructive disagreement and fights around the edges, but they're starting all on the same team.
Kevin McCarthy of California, who has seen a colossal drop in his stature and standing after his role, even after the insurrection.
Kevin McCarthy is another useless minority leader.
We are now able to see President-elect and Dr. Biden. For sticklers, we are running exactly 4.5 minutes behind, but they have a way of making that up.
Joy, talk about.
I want to say it. I want to say it. It's a beautiful periwinkle blue. It's a gorgeous coat. And, the coats.
Go, Joe. God bless you. I love you.
Obama wore that spectacular one in 2008. This one is. It's beautiful, and the fact that it's a young designer.
My support is in this campaign. MEGACOMRADE, investigative officer ERANOMIGHO EDEGBE, contributed to this campaign. The success of this inauguration, I contributed to it. Ego with the inauguration and
after this
ego.
It's tasteful. It's but it's got a little glam at the top. I see a little bling. I see a little shimmer. I love it. And the gloves are fabulous. The mask matches.
No, Lolo, no,
Joe is looking fantastic. Joe doesn't look so bad either. What a story, though. What a great love story between Jill Biden and Joe Biden, and the way that she helped his family recover from tragedy, to bring Joe back from what he lost. It's a wonderful story. And we haven't had a love story in the White House in 4 years. And it is, we now have the news that the Trump slept in separate bedrooms, and it's just a different kind of marriage. This is a love match.
Trump and his wife slept in the different.
I think that'll be healing for the country, too.
Wow.
They could have hired Spielberg to inject just the hint of snowflakes to make this more cinematic. But nature has supplied that.
Different bedroom.
The acting House Senate Sergeant at Arms, Senate Sergeant at Arms Jennifer Hemingway.
We should mention that the reason, as these security dignitaries are being announced, the reason everybody is acting Senate Sergeant at Arms both have their.
This is to MEGACOMRADE. Thank you. We to put your ticket in the mail.
After the attack on the Capitol and on the ill-defended Capitol 2 weeks ago. SAR operating and acting.
Confirm your shipping address. MEGACOMRADE. Oh, yeah, I recognize it.
The New York Times is reporting that former President Obama said to Vice President-elect Harris, "I'm so proud of you." Near shot of what they were able to hear. I don't know if our audio picked that up. Nice smell.
Also, some reporting.
The President-elect of the United States, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., and Dr. Jill Biden.
You see it? Thank you for your. You see that? You see that? Email. I contributed to it. When you ask people to support, they say, I supported this, what you are enjoying today. This democracy you are enjoying today, MEGACOMRADE supported it. With my sweat, with my time, with my money. Bought no lolo. Maybe go video.
President in 2009 and in 2013. It's also been used every time he's been sworn in as U.S. Senator. 5 inches thick with a Celtic cross on the cover. And then apparently his late son Beau also used it for his own swearing in as Attorney General in Delaware.
Okay, few. About 20 minutes to swear in. About 40 minutes. Or so, maybe.
Pence, Mr. President-elect, Madam Vice President-elect, members of Congress and the judicial branch, former presidents and first ladies, vice presidents, leaders from abroad, and a whole bunch of Bidens. America, welcome to the 59th presidential inauguration, where in just a few moments, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will take their solemn oaths. This ceremony is the culmination of 244 years of a democracy. It is the moment when leaders brought to this stage by the will of the people promise to be faithful to our Constitution, to cherish it and defend it. It is the moment when they become, as we all should be, guardians of our country. Have we become too jaded, too accustomed to the ritual of the passing of the torch of democracy to truly appreciate what a blessing and a privilege it is to witness this moment? I think not. 2 weeks ago, when an angry, violent mob staged an insurrection and desecrated this temple of our democracy, it awakened us to our responsibilities as Americans. This is the day when our democracy picks itself up, brushes off the dust, and does what America always does. Goes forward as a nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This conveyance of a sacred trust between our leaders and our people takes place in front of this shining Capitol dome for a reason. When Abraham Lincoln gave his first inaugural address in front of this Capitol, the dome was only partially constructed, braced by ropes of steel. He promised he would finish it. He was criticized for spending funds on it during the Civil War. To those critics, he replied, "If the people see the Capitol going on, it is a sign we intend the Union shall go on." And it did, and it will. Generations of Americans gave their lives to preserve our republic in this place. Great legislation to protect civil rights and economic security and lead the world was debated and crafted under this dome. Now it falls on all of us, not just the two leaders we are inaugurating today, to take up the torch of our democracy, not as a weapon of political arson, but as an instrument for good. We pledge today never to take our democracy for granted as we celebrate its remarkable strength. We celebrate its resilience, its grit. We celebrate the ordinary people doing extraordinary things for our nation, the doctors and nurses on the front line of this pandemic, the officers in the Capitol, a new generation never giving up hope for justice. We celebrate a new president, Joe Biden, who vows to restore the soul of America and cross the river of our divides to a higher plane. And we celebrate our first African American, first Asian American, and first woman vice president, Kamala Harris, who stands on the shoulders of so many on this platform who have forged the way to this day. When she takes the oath of office, little girls and boys across the world will know that anything and everything is possible. And in the end, that is America, our democracy, a country of so much good. And today, on these Capitol steps and before this glorious field of flags, we rededicate ourselves to its cause. Thank you. It is now my honor to introduce to you the senator who has worked with me and so many others to make this ceremony possible. My friend and the chair of the inaugural committee, Missouri Senator Roy Blunt.
Well, I should have known when Senator Klobuchar got involved, at least there'd be a touch of snow up here this morning. Of all the things we'd considered, I don't think snow was on my agenda until I walked out the door a moment ago. But thank you, Senator Klobuchar, and thanks to the other members of the Joint Congressional Committee on the Inauguration as we officially began the 59th inaugural ceremony. I also want to thank the Joint Committee staff and our partners, particularly our security partners, for the way they've dealt with unprecedented circumstances. When I chaired the inauguration 4 years ago, I shared President Reagan's 1981 description of this event as commonplace and miraculous. Commonplace because we've done it every 4 years since 1789. Miraculous because we've done it every 4 years since 1789. Americans have celebrated this moment during war, during depression, and now during pandemic. Once again, all three branches of our government come together as the Constitution envisions. Once again, we renew our commitment to our determined democracy, forging a more perfect union. That theme for this inauguration, our determined democracy, forging a more perfect union, was announced by the Joint Committee before the election with the belief that the United States can only fulfill its promise and set an example for others if we are always working to be better than we have been. The Constitution established that determined democracy with its first three words, declaring the people as the source of the government. The Articles of Confederation hadn't done that. The Magna Carta hadn't done that. Only the Constitution says the government exists because the people are the source of the reason it exists. They immediately followed those first three words with the words to form a more perfect union. The founders did not say to form a perfect union. They did not claim that in our new country nothing would need to be improved. Fortunately, they understood that always working to be better would be the hallmark of a great democracy. The freedoms we have today, the nation we have today, is not here just because it happened, and they aren't complete. A great democracy working through the successes and failures of our history, striving to be better than it had been. And we are more than we have been, and we are less than we hope to be. The assault on our Capitol at this very place just 2 weeks ago reminds us that a government designed to balance and check itself is both fragile and resilient. During the last year, the pandemic challenged our free and open society and called for extraordinary determination and sacrifice, and still challenges us today. Meeting that challenge head on have been and are healthcare workers, scientists, first responders, essential frontline workers, and so many others we depend on in so many ways. Today we come to this moment, people all over the world as we're here are watching and will watch what we do here. Our government comes together, the Congress and the courts join the transition of executive responsibility. One political party more pleased today and on every inaugural day than the other. But this is not a moment of division, it's a moment of unification. A new administration begins and brings with it a new beginning. And with that, our great national debate goes forward, and a determined democracy will continue to be essential in pursuit of a more perfect union and a better future for all Americans. What a privilege for me to join you today. Thank you. I'm pleased to call to the podium a longtime friend of the President-elect and his family, Father Leo O'Donovan, to lead us in an invocation. Please stand if you are able and remain standing for the national anthem and the pledge to our flag.
Gracious and merciful God, at this sacred time we come before you in need, indeed on our knees. But we come still more with hope, and with our eyes raised anew to the vision of a more perfect union in our land, a union of all our citizens to promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. We are a people of many races, creeds, and colors, national backgrounds, cultures, and styles, now far more numerous and on land much vaster than when Archbishop John Carroll wrote his prayer for the inauguration of George Washington 232 years ago. Archbishop Carroll prayed that you, O Creator of all, would assist with your Holy Spirit of counsel and fortitude the President of these United States, that his administration may be conducted in righteousness and be eminently useful to your people. Today we confess our past failures to live according to our vision of equality, inclusion, and freedom for all. Yet we resolutely commit still more now to renewing the vision, to caring for one another in word and deed, especially the least fortunate among us, and so becoming a light for the world. There is a power in each and every one of us that lives by turning to every other one of us, a thrust of the Spirit to cherish and care and stand by others, and above all, those most in need. It is called love, and its path is to give ever more of itself. Today, it is called American patriotism, born not of power and privilege, but of care for the common good, with malice toward none, and with charity for all. For our new president, we beg of you the wisdom Solomon sought when he knelt before you and prayed for an understanding heart, so that I can govern your people and know the difference between right and wrong. We trust in the counsel of the letter of James. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. Pope Francis has reminded us how important it is to dream together. By ourselves, he wrote, we risk seeing mirages, things that are not there. Dreams, on the other hand, are built together. Be with us, holy mystery of love, as we dream together. Help us under our new president to reconcile the people of our land, restore our dream and invest it with peace and justice and the joy that is the overflow of love. To the glory of your name, forever, amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the presentation of our national colors by the Armed Forces Color Guard, the singing of our national anthem, and for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ladies and gentlemen, here for the singing of our national anthem, accompanied by the President's own United States Marine Band, please welcome Lady Gaga.
Watching live from PFM, the inauguration of President Joseph Biden, live on YouTube and Facebook. God bless America.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from the city of South Fulton, Georgia Fire and Rescue Department, President of the International Association of Firefighters, Local 3920, Fire Captain Andrea M. Hall for the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What you are all about to be part of, America, is a historic moment of firsts. To administer the oath to our first African American, our first Asian American, and our first woman vice president, Kamala Harris, it is my great privilege to welcome to the inaugural stage the first Latina to ever serve on the Supreme Court of the United States of America, Justice Sonia Sotomayor.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the oath of office, followed by musical honors.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear.
Wow.
Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear. That
Wow.
I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
Wow.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
That I will well and faithfully discharge.
That I will well and faithfully discharge.
The duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
The duties of the office upon which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Wow. Vice President, former Vice President Mike Pence. The new Vice President of United States, Kamala Harris. That's it. Mike Pence is now former Vice President. God bless MEGACOMRADE. God bless People Freedom Movement. God bless the good people of Almighty America. It has happened. We did it. Thanks to MEGACOMRADE who worked tirelessly or who supported former Vice President Mike Pence. I made it possible. We all did it. Exactly. No one is going to give me credit. I will give myself credit. Former Vice President Mike Pence. That's it. That's it.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
First black woman Vice President in America. History is made. Today's date is Wednesday, January 20th. 2021.
To perform This Land Is Your Land,
yes.
America the Beautiful, accompanied by members of the President's own United States Marine Band.
Kakba. Oh, we don't know. Jennifer Lopez, you Jennifer Lopez, that pep the ghetto. Your house not they contain you. Hey, where is PDD? Come and take your girlfriend. Pop Daddy. Come and take your Jennifer Lopez. PDD. Daddy, come and take your girlfriend. Hey, Jennifer Lopez. Oh, why? Oh, we can be you. We can be. Then I'm with me. It can be more as a power.
This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me.
That's correct.
As I went walking down that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below.
I have to celebrate my lovely wife. A delay now, I want to come. MEGACOMRADE, I am happy, I am excited. History is being made. When you think you are more powerful, we will produce you out of the office. Unfortunately, that is not what is happening in Nigeria, in Edo State, because some youth who decided to be entry bed with all this corrupt leader, they have damaged the youth opportunity in Nigeria. This is America, where democracy flourish. Hate MEGACOMRADE or like him, a man of the truth. That's right. America. Oh, give me. This is my home.
From sea to shining sea. Una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos. Let's get
MEGACOMRADE celebrating.
this land was made for you and me.
Come again, Jennifer Lopez. Tom Daddy, come and carry your girlfriend. Oh. Jennifer Lopez. Jennifer Lopez pimped the girl. She pimped the goddamn girl. Pimped the girl. Look at Jennifer Lopez. They are here.
That was great. The sun is shining, and Mr. President-elect, this is the first inauguration in the history of America where J-Lo was the warm-up act for Chief Justice Roberts. With that, it is now my distinct honor to introduce the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, John Roberts, to administer the presidential oath to the next President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden.
Okay, here instantly. Yeah, watch out. The code nuclear bomb, nuclear. Yeah, what disable will be Trump. Trump is about to become the former president. Okay, we are not. Oh, Bo Biden, God bless you. Trump, Bo Biden, God bless you. We love you, Bo.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute. The office of President of the United States.
Office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend. The Constitution of the United States. So help you God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Mr. President. Former President Donald J. Trump. Shameless one. Idiot. We did it. Akataka. Nonsense. Some people that were from Benin City, they said they are supporting Donald J. Trump. I bury you people in shame. I'm with Donald Trump, yeah, a picture. Facebook, profile picture. Yeah, deleted ya. Oh, former President Trump, you know, it's over. Jamage, China, and I, the Guardian. Jamage. Wow. The world have changed. The most powerful man in the globe today, Joseph Biden, it's over. Oh, my parents okay. He want to cry. My parents want to cry. He give me. ERANOMIGHO, on a tout do that. It's a fire. Oh, man. I suffer people. But MEGACOMRADE, you people too do us. Barack Obama, God bless you. Double marks a lot of them use. Double marks, Sotomayor. But bulletproof.
My fellow Americans, a moment we have all been
waiting for.
It is now my great privilege and high honor to be the first person to officially introduce the 46th President of the United States,
Joseph R. Biden Jr. Oh, Mr. President. Congratulations, Mr. President. I love my money. Power is too sweet. Oh, what boy you want? Steven, power is too sweet.
Chief Justice Roberts, Vice President Harris, Speaker Pelosi, Leader Schumer, Leader McConnell, Vice President Pence, and my distinguished guests, my fellow Americans. This is America's day.
Oh.
This is democracy's day. A day of history and hope, of renewal and resolve. Through a crucible for the ages, America has been tested anew, and America has risen to the challenge. Today, we celebrate the triumph not of a candidate, but of a cause, the cause of democracy. The people, the will of the people has been heard, and the will of the people has been heeded. We've learned again that democracy is precious, democracy is fragile, and at this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed.
Oh.
So now, on this hallowed ground where just a few days ago, violence sought to shake the Capitol's very foundation, we come together as one nation, under God, indivisible, to carry out the peaceful transfer of power as we have for more than 2 centuries. As we look ahead in our uniquely American way, restless, bold, optimistic, and set our sights on the nation we know we can be and we must be. I thank my predecessors of both parties for their presence here today. I thank them from the bottom of my heart. And I know the resilience of our Constitution and the strength of our nation, as does President Carter, who I spoke with last night, who cannot be with us today, but whom we salute for his lifetime in service. I've just taken the sacred oath each of those patriots have taken. The oath first sworn by George Washington. But the American story depends not on any one of us, not on some of us, but on all of us, on we the people who seek a more perfect union. This is a great nation. We're good people. And over the centuries, through storm and strife, in peace and in war, we've come so far, but we still have far to go. We'll press forward with speed and urgency, for we have much to do in this winter of peril and significant possibilities. Much to repair, much to restore, much to heal, much to build, and much to gain. Few people in our nation's history have been more challenged or found a time more challenging or difficult than the time we're in now. Once-in-a-century virus that silently stalks the country. It's taken as many lives in 1 year as America lost in all of World War II. Millions of jobs have been lost.
Oh.
Millions of jobs have been lost. Hundreds of thousands of businesses closed. A cry for racial justice, some 400 years in the making, moves us. The dream of justice for all will be deferred no longer. The cry for survival comes from the planet itself. A cry that can't be any more desperate or any more clear. And now, a rise of political extremism, white supremacy, domestic terrorism, that we must confront and we will defeat. To overcome these challenges, to restore the soul and secure the future of America, requires so much more than words. It requires the most elusive of all things in a democracy: unity. Unity. In another January, on New Year's Day in 1863, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. When he put pen to paper, the president said, and I quote, "If my name ever goes down into history, it'll be for this act, and my whole soul is in it." My whole soul is in it. Today, on this January day, my whole soul is in this. Bringing America together, uniting our people, uniting our nation. And I ask every American to join me in this cause. Uniting to fight the foes we face: anger, resentment and hatred, extremism, lawlessness, violence, disease, joblessness, and hopelessness. With unity, we can do great things, important things. We can right wrongs. We can put people to work in good jobs. We can teach our children in safe schools. We can overcome the deadly virus. We can reward work and rebuild the middle class and make healthcare secure for all. We can deliver racial justice, and we can make America once again the leading force for good in the world. I know speaking of unity can sound to some like a foolish fantasy these days. I know the forces that divide us are deep and they are real. But I also know they are not new. Our history has been a constant struggle between the American ideal that we're all created equal and the harsh, ugly reality that racism, nativism, fear, demonization have long torn us apart. The battle is perennial, and victory is never assured. Through Civil War, the Great Depression, World War, 9/11, through struggle, sacrifice, and setbacks, our better angels have always prevailed. In each of these moments, enough of us have come together to carry all of us forward. And we can do that now. History, faith, and reason show the way of unity. We can see each other not as adversaries, but as neighbors. We can treat each other with dignity and respect. We can join forces, stop the shouting, and lower the temperature. For without unity, there is no peace, only bitterness and fury. No progress, only exhausting outrage. No nation, only a state of chaos. This is our historic moment of crisis and challenge. And unity is the path forward. And we must meet this moment as the United States of America. If we do that, I guarantee you we will not fail. We have never, ever, ever, ever failed in America when we've acted together. And so today, at this time, in this place, let's start afresh, all of us. Let's begin to listen to one another again, hear one another, see one another, show respect to one another. Politics doesn't have to be a raging fire, destroying everything in its path. Every disagreement doesn't have to be a cause for total war. And we must reject the culture in which facts themselves are manipulated and even manufactured. My fellow Americans, we have to be different than this. America has to be better than this. And I believe America is so much better than this. Just look around. Here we stand in the shadow of the Capitol Dome, as was mentioned earlier, completed amid the Civil War, when the Union itself was literally hanging in the balance. Yet we endured. We prevailed. Here we stand, looking out on the great mall where Dr. King spoke of his dream. Here we stand where 108 years ago, at another inaugural, thousands of protesters tried to block brave women marching for the right to vote. And today, we mark the swearing in of the first woman in American history elected to national office, Vice President Kamala Harris. Don't tell me things can't change. Here we stand, across the Potomac from Arlington Cemetery, where heroes who gave the last full measure of devotion rest in eternal peace. And here we stand, just days after a riotous mob thought they could use violence to silence the will of the people, to stop the work of our democracy, to drive us from this sacred ground. It did not happen. It will never happen. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Not ever. To all those who supported our campaign, I'm humbled by the faith you placed in us.
Thank you.
To all those who did not support us, let me say this. Hear me out as we move forward. Take a measure of me and my heart. And if you still disagree, so be it. That's democracy. That's America. The right to dissent peaceably within the guardrails of our republic is perhaps this nation's greatest strength. Yet hear me clearly. Disagreement must not lead to disunion. And I pledge this to you. I will be a president for all Americans. All Americans. And I promise you, I will fight as hard for those who did not support me as for those who did. Many centuries ago, St. Augustine, a saint of my church, wrote that a people was a multitude defined by the common objects of their love. Defined by the common objects of their love. What are the common objects we as Americans love that define us as Americans? I think we know. Opportunity, security, liberty, dignity, respect, honor, and yes, the truth. Recent weeks and months have taught us a painful lesson. There is truth and there are lies. Lies told for power and for profit. And each of us has a duty and a responsibility as citizens, as Americans, and especially as leaders. Leaders who have pledged to honor our Constitution and protect our nation, to defend the truth and defeat the lies. Look, I understand that many of my fellow Americans view the future with fear and trepidation. I understand they worry about their jobs. I understand, like my dad, they lay at bed at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering, can I keep my health care? Can I pay my mortgage? Thinking about their families, about what comes next. I promise you, I get it. But the answer is not to turn inward, to retreat into competing factions, distrusting those who don't look like you, or worship the way you do, or don't get their news from the same sources you do. We must end this uncivil war that pits red against blue, rural versus urban, conservative versus liberal. We can do this if we open our souls instead of hardening our hearts, if we show a little tolerance and humility, and if
we're willing to stand in the other person's shoes, as my mom would say, just for a moment, stand in their shoes. Because here's the thing about life. There's no accounting for what fate will deal you. Some days, when you need a hand. There are other days when we're called to lend a hand. That's how it has to be. That's what we do for one another. And if we are this way, our country will be stronger, more prosperous, more ready for the future. And we can still disagree. My fellow Americans, in the work ahead of us, we're going to need each other. We need all our strength to persevere through this dark winter. We're entering what may be the toughest and deadliest period of the virus. We must set aside politics and finally face this pandemic as one nation. One nation. And I promise you this, as the Bible says, weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. We will get through this together. Together. Look, folks, all my colleagues I serve with in the House and the Senate up here, we all understand the world is watching all of us today. So here's my message to those beyond our borders. America has been tested, and we've come out stronger for it. We will repair our alliances and engage with the world once again. Not to meet yesterday's challenges, but today's and tomorrow's challenges. And we'll lead not merely by the example of our power, but by the power of our example. We'll be a strong and trusted partner for peace, progress, and security. Look, you all know we've been through so much in this nation. And my first act as president, I'd like to ask you to join me in a moment of silent prayer. Remember all those who we lost in this past year to the pandemic. Those 400,000 fellow Americans, moms, dads, husbands, wives, sons, daughters, friends, neighbors, and co-workers. We'll honor them by becoming the people and the nation we know we can and should be. So I ask you, let's say a silent prayer for those who've lost their lives and those left behind, and for our country. Amen. Folks, this is a time of testing. We face an attack on our democracy and on truth, a raging virus, growing inequity, the sting of systemic racism, a climate in crisis, America's role in the world. Any one of these would be enough to challenge us in profound ways. But the fact is, we face them all at once, presenting this nation with one of the gravest responsibilities we've had. Now we're going to be tested. Are we going to step up? All of us? It's time for boldness, for there's so much to do. And this is certain. I promise you, we will be judged, you and I, by how we resolve these cascading crises of our era. We will rise to the occasion is the question. Will we master this rare and difficult hour? Will we meet our obligations and pass along a new and better world to our children? I believe we must. I'm sure you do as well. I believe we will. And when we do, we'll write the next great chapter in the history of the United States of America, the American story. A story that might sound something like a song that means a lot to me. It's called American Anthem. There's one verse that stands out, at least for me, and it goes like this. The work and prayers of century have brought us to this day. What shall be our legacy? What will our children say? Let me know in my heart when my days are through, America, America, I gave my best to you. Let's us add our own work and prayers to the unfolding story of our great nation. If we do this, then when our days are through, our children and our children's children will say of us, they gave their best, they did their duty, they healed a broken land. My fellow Americans, I close the day where I began, with the sacred oath. Before God and all of you, I give you my word. I will always level with you. I will defend the Constitution. I'll defend our democracy. I'll defend America. And I will give all of you, keep everything I do in your service, thinking not of power, but of possibilities, not of personal interest, but the public good. And together, we shall write an American story of hope, not fear, of unity, not division, of light, not darkness, a story of decency and dignity, love and healing, greatness and goodness. May this be the story that guides us, the story that inspires us, and the story that tells ages yet to come that we answered the call of history. We met the moment. Democracy and hope, truth and justice did not die on our watch but thrived. That America secured liberty at home and stood once again as a beacon to the world. That is what we owe our forebears, one another, and generation to follow. So, with purpose and resolve, we turn to those tasks of our time, sustained by faith, driven by conviction, devoted to one another and the country we love with all our hearts. May God bless America.
Wow.
And may God protect our troops. Thank you, America.
Wow. You see a good president? Not even one stone. He did not throw one stone to any leader. He minded his business. You see military, they are not clapping. If it was Nigeria, they will be clapping. After it's over. Oh, former vice president.
Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Garth Brooks to perform Amazing Grace.
See? A Republican.
Amazing
Grace,
how
sweet, oh my God,
the sound that saved a wretch like me.
oh,
I was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when
we first begun. If I can ask you to sing this last verse with me, not just the people here, but the people at home, at work, as one, united. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
Wow.
Hard not to be reminded of President Obama's singing that same song at the Mother Emanuel Church.
Exactly. That's why I was crying.
A song that in our culture is as close to both poetry and prayer.
God bless you, Obama. I love you.
And we're going to finish with those two things. Let me introduce Amanda Gorman, our nation's first ever National Poet Laureate.
Wow. Wow. Unbelievable. And I see. I'm so happy.
Mr. President, Dr. Biden, Madam Vice President, Mr. Emhoff, Americans, and the world. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace. The norms and notions of what just is isn't always just is.
Go, girl.
And yet the dawn is hours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gaze not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew. That even as we hurt, we hoped. That even as we tired, we tried. That we'll forever be tied together, victorious. Not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy.
Wow.
And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated.
Very out there.
In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So, while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain: if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from my bronze-pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the west. We will rise from the wind-swept northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked south. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade of flame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
Oh. Oh, my piano. Oh. Yeah, I'm going to 4+4 with them. Oh. I'm going to
Thank you, Amanda.
Let's go to the next channel.
Poem on Inauguration Day.
A star.
And now, this young
lady.
Of the Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Wilmington, Delaware, a friend of President Biden for 30 years.
As a nation and people of faith gathered in this historical moment, let us unite in prayer. God, we gather under the beauty of your holiness and the holiness of your beauty. We seek your face, your smile, your warm embrace. We petition you once more in this celebration. We pray for divine favor upon our President, Joseph R. Biden, and our First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, and their family. We further ask that you would extend the same favor upon our Vice President, Kamala D. Harris, and our second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, and their family. More than ever, they and our nation need you. We need you, for in you we discover our common humanity. In our common humanity, we will seek out the wounded and bind their wounds. We will seek healing for those who are sick and diseased. We will mourn our dead. We will befriend the lonely, the least, and the left out. We will share our abundance with those who are hungry. We will do justly to the oppressed, acknowledge sin, and seek forgiveness, thus grasping reconciliation. In discovering our humanity, we will seek the good in and for all our neighbors. We will love the unlovable, remove the stigma of the so-called untouchables. We will care for our most vulnerable, our children, the elderly, emotionally challenged, and the poor. We will seek rehabilitation beyond correction. We will extend opportunity to those locked out of opportunity. We will make friends of our enemies. We will make friends of our enemies. People, your people, shall no longer raise up weapons against one another. We will rather use our resources for the national good and become a beacon of life and goodwill to the world. And neither shall we learn hatred anymore. We will lie down in peace and not make our neighbors afraid. In you, O God, we discover our humanity. In our humanity, we discover our commonness. Beyond the difference of color, creed, origin, political party, ideology, geography, and personal preferences, we'll become greater stewards of your environment, preserving the land, reaping from it a sustainable harvest, and securing its wonder and miracle-giving power for generations to come. This is our benediction, that from these hallowed grounds, where slaves labored to build this shrine and citadel to liberty and democracy, let us all acknowledge, from the indigenous Native American to those who recently received their citizenship, from the African American to those whose foreparents came from Europe and every corner of the globe, from the wealthy to those struggling to make it, from every human being regardless of their choices, that this is our country. As such, teach us, O God. As such, teach us, O God, to live in it, love in it, be healed in it, and reconcile to one another in it, lest we miss kingdom's goal. To your glory, majesty, dominion, and power forever. Hallelujah.
Amen.
Glory. Hallelujah.
Amen.
In the strong name of our collective faith. Amen.
Amen.
Please remain standing as the Armed Forces Color Guard retires our national colors.
President Biden. So, no matter how hard it is, he started fighting when it was 30s. 70s, he got it. Pum, 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 pum. Yeah, no, we had the training. My question, yeah. Pum, pum. Boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated and remain in your seats while the president and official party depart the platform. For safety reasons, your ushers will release your section in an organized manner, following the playing of our national march, The Stars and Stripes Forever.
A full president. Papa. Hey. Hey. Only Donald Trump is the bad head. Only former President Donald Trump is not here. Imagine. Donald Trump and his supporters, they are domestic terrorists. Not all of them.
America and the world just heard the new American president declare democracy is precious, democracy is fragile. Democracy has prevailed. 32 minutes ago, while Joe Biden spoke, the power of the presidency slipped from the grasp of a twice impeached private citizen in Florida. Joe Biden left no doubt he is here to serve all Americans. He gave the kind of inaugural address our presidents used to give, as hopeful as the man delivering it, yet an honest reflection of a great country at its modern-day low point.
That's it.
Beset by two viruses, one a pandemic, the other a sickness that has flowed into our politics. And the world will not soon forget a young woman named
opportunist. As her husband in Russia.
The message has gone out.
What man don't he
United States is back and under new management.
I was struck, Brian, by the very consistent through line through the inaugural address. I don't know exactly what the line will be that we remember forever. I think the one that is sticking with me is, we must end this uncivil war. Joe Biden has been criticized by those in his own party for his consistent and unbending dedication to the idea of unity, to the idea of a bipartisan possibility. But today he embraced that fully. He addressed his critics and said, you know, this may sound to some of you like a fantasy, but it is the way forward. It is the path out of this. He said, my whole soul is in this, uniting our people, uniting our nation. And it's the grounds on which he ran for president. It was the unceasing theme of his campaign, even in the primary, when his primary rivals, including Kamala Harris, now as vice president, criticized him for essentially being naive to think that there was unity and a bipartisan future in American politics, especially in the wake of Donald Trump. But that is what Joe Biden is staking his presidency and the idea of his ascendance to the presidency on, that America is ready to, as he put it, end this uncivil war and to see one another once again as neighbors and not enemies.
And Nicole Wallace, to think that's all it took.
More though, right? I mean, I just to build on Rachel's observations and yours, I heard a declaration of war against white supremacy and against the lies that brought our democracy.
Let's go to Fast News.
To move the country forward. We know that Joe Biden has a very split Senate, 50-50. It's very reflective of where the country is
you
right
see
now.
them?
Nancy
They are
Pelosi
talking
has
about
a very slim
imagine.
majority in the House.
Fast News are the problem.
And when it comes to this unity question, you know, there's talk about getting along with Republicans, of course. But I really wonder how Joe Biden speaks to the left of his party. Over the last 2 months, we've seen people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who has a formidable seat in the power of the left on the Democratic side now, calling for people from the Trump administration to be put on lists. You have voted for in the last presidential election. And so, you know, there are questions about whether the left, who thinks, look, Joe Biden won the White House. They got behind him to get him there. They have the Senate control, House control in Washington.
Okay, Facebook.
Maybe they don't want
you can meet us in YouTube. God bless you all.